Before we get started with today's show, I want to send out my love and condolences to the family and friends of John Brenkus. John was the sports science guy. And if you were a sports fan, you watched his content. You watched how he would add the scientific element to something that we love. John lost his battle to depression, as was announced on his X account on May 31st. And I just want to send out my love and also say, if you're out there and you're battling with depression and you feel like you can't talk to anybody, please reach out and know we love you.
I'm excited to talk more about my background.
Also worked in so many places of media, which you will find out more. Two friends who like wrestling that talk about wrestling. To now, let's start a podcast.
Grassroots style, the way me and Brian have done it. Every opportunity is an opportunity.
Kind of makes me want to step my game up a little bit more just because the space is so oversaturated. Anyone can start a podcast.
I live in New York City, so there's, opportunity everywhere in New York. Like, everyone's doing something. You go to a bar for happy hour, the bartender has a business.
And you apply that same strategy to network. You being very intentional. Find your why. What's the reason? Then do it.
Podcasting allowed me to break out of my comfort zone, to break out of my shell.
This is 6HM Productions.
Before we get started with today's show, I just want to remind you that you can save 10% on your order with Symphony of Balloons, a luxury balloon company that also offers a 360 camera. Just simply mention you heard about them on Breaking Through Glass Ceiling. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with Uncomfortable Conversations. I am your host, Brian H. Waters, and this show is brought to you by 6HM Production. Folks, it's been a while, but man, we are in the thick of the NBA playoffs. Actually, we're not in the playoffs anymore. We're in the NBA Finals. As I record this on Monday afternoon, it is official that the Indiana Pacers will take on the Oklahoma City Thunder to decide who will be the next NBA champions. Now, everybody knows I'm a Lakers fan. You may wonder why I have on a Denver Nuggets jersey, but I say, during the finals, if I'm recording, I think I'm going to wear my jerseys. So I start off with this great Carmelo jersey that was a gift from my Uncle Kurt after I graduated from high school. Melo being my second favorite player ever. I had to get this jersey. I already had a Kobe jersey. Had to get a Melo jersey. But there's all this talk about who's the face of the NBA. And I think the face of the NBA could be decided with this finals. Now, there are people out there I know are saying there's nowhere in the world Tyrese Haliburton could be the face of the NBA. There are people even saying that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can't be the face of the NBA. Nobody knows. It's up for the taking. Jason Tatum won the championship last year, even though Jaylen Brown was the MVP, but nobody's trying to crown neither one of those guys as the face of the NBA. But I don't know. It's very different, right? But I think Tyrese has a chance. Here is somebody who was on the Olympic team but did not get a lot of play on the U.S. Olympic team, where Shai, SGA, was, he's on a different team. He's not from the United States. So there's people saying that a foreign-born player can't be the face. Somebody who's not going to be on Team USA, they can't be the face of the NBA. Well, let's just say that's true. Can it be Tyrese Haliburton? Do anybody believe that? Does the face of the NBA have to be the best player, or do they have to be the most marketable player who's a top 5 player? That is my question. I don't have the answers. Now, here's what I will say. I don't know how this series goes, but I do think there is consideration that if Tyrese Haliburton can take down the OKC Thunder, that he has to be in that conversation. he would have become a champion. He would be the first person to bring the Pacers a championship. How cool would that be? So that brings me to my next question. Are we ready to say he's the second greatest Pacer ever? I think because Reggie Miller's a Hall of Famer, and Reggie Miller was so accomplished, and even though he never won the big one, I think we got to understand that he's still the greatest Pacer ever until dethroned. Now, maybe if Haliburton wins multiple championships, we have another conversation. But I was sitting there thinking, I was like, wow, the thing about Reggie was he played in the wrong era. They was this close to beating Michael Jordan in the conference final, in the playoffs, get it done. So you look back, and when the Pacers were like finally making their way, there was Shaq and Penny in a way. There was Jordan and Pippen. Then there was the Knicks. There was Ewing and Sprewell, Larry Johnson, Allen Houston, John Starks, all these people. So they never could get there. And then when they finally broke through, they finally got to the NBA Finals, they ran into a buzzsaw that was Kobe and Shaq. And then the Detroit Pistons happened. And if Reggie Miller dunks that ball, who knows? But instead, he went for the layup, and we got the block of the 2000s, and Tayshaun Prince pretty much sent the Indiana Pacers home. The following year was the Malice in the Palace. The year that I do think they probably had a chance. You look at that team. I like playing with them on NBA 2K5. It's like we realized, like, wow, this team was really good. And I ain't gonna sit up here and lie and say I was a Pacers fan. I wasn't. But looking back at it now, I like the stories. I love hearing from like Ron Artest and Steven Jackson and everything. So it's just crazy. But that's what I'm wondering. Now sit back and think about the New York Knicks. My second favorite team in the NBA. Bravo. A team who I thought was a top 3 team, but the distance between them and the Boston Celtics were like right here. They couldn't beat them during the regular season. They stole a couple games from them, dare say. They stole 2 games in Boston. And then Jason Tatum got hurt. Now, that game Tatum got hurt, I still thought the Knicks were going to do it. They found their way. So I'm excited to see where they go next. Jalen Brunson is my second favorite player in the league to Russell Westbrook. Even though, Russ plays for a team I don't like. I know it's the Denver Nuggets, but he plays for a team I don't like. So am I really going to root for him? So that's what I'm looking at. But I'm excited for the New York Knicks. A step further than where they was last year. I think the fans should be happy. Just 2 games within the finals. And you do think if they could have held on to game 1, right? And then game 2, like they had both games won. They should have won this series. I still think the Knicks are the better team. They just didn't close. Tyrese Haliburton was annoying, but I got to give that man credit. Not just because he's a wrestler fan. I got to give him credit. He did his thing. And there's a slight part of me that wants to root for him. But then I'm like, no, because you beat the Knicks. You beat my favorite player who was in the playoffs, left. So I want to see him lose. But then, again, this face of the league. So I don't know. I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to support this podcast by wearing a t-shirt, whether it's the one that says breaking through glass ceilings or the one that says no ceilings above success, simply go to foryourwear.com. Also, you can support some of your other favorite podcasts and content creators, including Those Wrestling Girls, Seahawk, and the Wrestling Club. And you can support some of your favorite independent wrestlers, including Jay Bougie, Trisha Dora, Chaz the Dawn. Shoot, all the Pure Ignorance is on there. So go on foryourwear.com, go under the personalities, you'll find Brian H. Waters, and buy a t-shirt. And remember, I'll give you a shout out on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, are you in the gym every week? Are you looking to kind of keep yourself cool while you work up a nasty sweat? Well, I got the best thing for you. Cooling bands, bandanas, cooling towels, and so much more. Go to Vertical Athletics, get your favorite team in MLS or MLB. Or guess what? Now they have a custom option so you can upload your own logo and you can save 10% at checkout when you enter the code Brian H. Waters. Go to vertical.com, use the code Brian H. Waters to save 10% on some of your best cooling gear. Have y'all heard about Vanessa Bryant? Now, there was a photo of her surfacing. And people had a nerve to talk about, was she pregnant? And I remember there was a time when you don't discuss whether a woman is pregnant. You don't ask, they tell you. But here's another thing. I saw this one video and this guy talking about she's supposed to carry on Kobe's legacy. How dare she get married? Or how dare she have somebody? She should be living off of Kobe's legacy and his millions and, leave behind. So she's supposed to be lonely? Get the hell out of here. So that was very, very interesting. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, yo, this dude, and of course it's a guy, because only guys would say stuff like this, is going in on Vanessa Bryant. And I'm like, yo, let that woman be. So I think people just need to mind their business. There's no reason, and she basically said, no, I'm not pregnant. She basically said living her on Instagram story. She posted a picture about living her life, and then living and pregnant free. So I think people need to stop being weird. Very short show today. So get ready to get out of here. I want to talk about the end of an era. The official end of an era is here. Inside the NBA is over. Now it's headed to ESPN, and a lot of people don't like that. Now here's the story. When I was in Connecticut, and I didn't work for NBA Today. I wasn't like, but when you do highlights, you would give them, and they might use some of it. But I had friends who worked there, and the thing was, like, no matter how good the talent was, they couldn't be what NBA inside the NBA was because they couldn't curse. They owned by Walt Disney, owned by the mouse. So I'm interested to see what happens here. How does this going to work? It's crazy that TNT let the NBA get away from them, especially when they said they could survive without the NBA. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I want to know how many people are watching TNT outside of wrestling fans and basketball fans. How many people watching TNT? Are you watching some of the movies or the TV shows? So that's what I want to know. But bravo, great. It was a great thing inside the NBA. There was always a topic of conversation. You hear people say, "Oh, what did Shaq and Barkley and Kenny and Ernie say?" And then they were sprinkling some people. So it's going to be missed in that format. Now I'm just interested to see how does it last or survive. Is it going to be YouTube based? Somebody let me know. Is it going to be on YouTube? Is it going to be on ESPN? ESPN's digital platforms. That's still going to be interesting. I'm more interested when it comes to NBA TV next year. I'm interested in NBC. I'm interested in my guy Carmelo give his analysis, I should say. And I'm ready to hear the music. Y'all know the music. It's classic. It's been my ringtone too. It's been my ringtone for years. So where we are with that. But I'm going to get ready to get out of here, folks. As always, I appreciate all of your support. Looking forward to incredible NBA Finals. I know a lot of people saying the ratings are going to be low. It's two small market teams. It's the changing of the guard. The best thing, I saw this graphic where it showed, like, since we hit 2020, there's been a different champion every year. We started with the Lakers. Then we went to... Let's see if I can do this. But, before the Lakers was the Raptors, was a different champion. Then the Lakers, then the Bucks. And then it was the Nuggets, Warriors, Celtics. I may be missing one. Or maybe not. Celtics was last year, right? So yeah, Celtics was last year. Year before that was the Nuggets. Year before that it was the Warriors. Year before that it was the Bucks. Year before that it was the Lakers. And somebody gonna correct me if I'm wrong. But year before that it was the Raptors. And obviously year before that we was in the Warriors dynasty. And I have to say, I like the disparity. Give me different teams, except when it's my team. Of course, I want my team to win all the championships. But when it's not, I like it. You know, I grew up in the 90s. It was always the Bulls. Then after the Bulls, it was the Spurs, all Lakers, throw the Pistons in there once, Spurs, whoever. And, you know, at that point, it was like Miami got one. And then who else got one? 06. Oh, no, it was 04. Yeah, 03 Spurs. 05 Spurs, 07 Spurs. Then we went to the Celtics. Then we went to the 2 Laker championships. Of course, I'm not going to complain. But then we went to the LeBron era. This is where I say LeBron ruined the league when he teamed up because then they got us in a whole decade worth of super teams. Now we seem to be getting away from the super teams. That's the best part. So, who's going to be the NBA champion this year? Will this champion repeat? Does these champions have an opportunity to be a dynasty? Whether it's the OKC or whether it's the Indiana Pacers. Only time will tell. Make sure y'all follow me at Brian H. Waters on all social media platforms. Until the next time, folks, don't let anybody place a ceiling above your success. So long, everybody.